In the days of the NES and SNES, Nintendo took an interest in UK-based developers Argonaut Software. The company, headed by founder Jez San, presented Nintendo with a demo for a 3D flight game on the NES codenamed NES Glider. The original demo was based on Jez's early game Star Glider, but was always meant to be a new IP. Once they were given the development kits, NES Glider became SNES Glider, and the project moved forward. Upon reaching the technological limits of the console, Argonaut informed Nintendo that if the game was going to perform better, they needed permission to make hardware changes so that the SNES could run full 3D. Nintendo approved, and the resulting product was the Mathematical Argonaut Rotation and Input-Output chip, better known as its final name, Super FX. As a graphic accelerator, Super FX allowed the SNES to better run 3D models and advanced 2D effects. During the development of the tech, the original plan was to integrate the chip into the hardware itself. However, due to delays, the chip failed to be ready in time for the Super Famicom's release, so it was decided to be included within the game cartridge instead. This led to more expensive development, and thus a higher price point for the games that it used. In later revisions of both the Super Famicom and the SNES, the chip was included, making it far easier to develop for and with. With the Super FX chip finished, development of the Glider demo took shape as an on-rails space shooter. Inspired by Star Wars' X-Wings, players would take the role of an R-Wing pilot flying through gates inspired by the Torii gates at Fushimi Inari Taisha Shrine. The idea to turn the characters into animals came from Shigeru Miyamoto's desire to stay away from the traditional sci-fi tropes of human and robots. From this came Team Star Fox, designed by Takuya Imura. The final team includes Fox McCloud, Falco Lombardi, Peppy Hare, and Slippy Toad. Together, they took on the evil Andross under the command of General Pepper. With work complete, Star Fox was released on the SNES on February 21st, 1993 in Japan, March 23rd, 1993 in North America, and as Star Wing on June 3rd, 1993 in Europe, June 5th, 1993 in the UK. The European name was changed as to avoid issues with the German company Starvox, which is a trend that would continue with European releases until Star Fox Adventures. Taking control of the Fox himself, players must pick one of 3 different paths through the Lilat system in order to reach the evil Andross who is trying to wage war on Canaria after being exiled to the planet Venom. You work for the mercenary team Star Fox, who is contracted by Canaria's Defense Force Commander General Pepper. Beyond each path representing difficulty, each path also includes its own planets, level layouts, and other quirks that made replaying the game more appealing, a trend that would continue through the rest of the franchise. Although this would change in later entries, here in this first game, the player never leaves the R-Wing, with the entire game taking place in the air. Being highly praised for its revolutionary graphics, Star Fox came out to great reviews. Scoring 9s and 10s in a variety of gaming magazines, it topped the Famitsu charts for 2 months. With these reviews also came great sales, with Nintendo shipping an estimated 1.7 million units across North America and Japan by the end of March 1993. At the time, this made it the fastest-selling launch Nintendo had ever had in North America, and one of the fastest-selling games of all time, according to a UPI article in June of 1993. Although we should be heading to the N64 next, there's another game I want to cover first, as it pertains more to this game than anything else. Shortly after Star Fox released, Argonaut immediately began working on a sequel. Developed with the enhanced version of the Super FX chip in mind, this entry would once again push the SNES to its limits with even more intensive graphics than the first one. With all of this new computing power, new things such as free-roaming levels and platforming could also be added into the fray. This time, programmer Dylan Cuthbert worked out of Nintendo's headquarters, being directly overseen by Miyamoto and Katsuya Eguchi as development commenced. Being heavily influenced by the Namco game Star Luster, Cuthbert decided to add in random encounters in the combat as well to further continue the series' emphasis on replayability. Andross has returned to terrorize the Lilat system once more, so General Pepper brings back Team Star Fox once again to save the universe. Joining the team this time are 2 new recruits, Miu the Lynx and Faye the Dog. Star Fox 2 also marked the introduction of Team Starwolf, another evil mercenary team consisting of leader Wolf O'Donnell, Leon Pawaski, Pigma Dengar, and Algi. The player must once again fly an R-Wing through multiple different planets to defeat Andros. Beyond the gameplay difference mentioned above, the game followed an almost exact plotline as the first game at the end of the day. When the game was reaching completion, a playable version of the game was shown off at the Winter Electronics Showcase in 1995. It obtained good remarks, with multiple magazines saying that the demo was already looking better than the first game, and the shift to free roaming and adding platforming was noted as a highlight. However, as 1995 continued and Star Fox 2 got closer and closer to completion, Nintendo took a harder look at the game's validity, as not only had the work already begun on Nintendo's next system, but 3D had also evolved significantly with the introduction of both Sony's PlayStation and Sega's Saturn console. Cuthbert went on to claim that Star Fox 2 would be compared directly against games such as Ridge Racer, which felt like you had an arcade machine's power in your home. So with all that in mind, as well as the estimated cost of producing the Super FX2, led Nintendo to make the decision of canceling the game at around 95% completion, including QA testing and localization. This cancellation was never announced publicly, and a lot of different outlets simply believed it was just delayed. The first time the game resurfaced came a couple years later when beta versions leaked online. These builds were not the nearly complete version, but it didn't take long for that one to show up as well. Due to efforts in the emulation community, some of the bugs that were present in these builds were ironed out to make something more playable. All of the source code would end up being included in the 2020 Nintendo Giga Leak. An official version of the release had not been considered due to difficulty emulating the FX chip. This was until the producer of the SNES Classic proposed that it should be included in an effort to not let a finished game go to waste. Even Argonaut was not made aware of this idea until it was officially revealed in June of 2017. After release, it was confirmed by Cuthbert that beyond minimal changes made by Nintendo, such as removed screen flashing, that the version released on the SNES Classic was the original game in its original form as developed by Argonaut. Although there were definitely some critiques on things like frame rate and slight jank, Star Fox 2 got a lot of praise for being very innovative and fun. After the decision was made to cancel Star Fox 2, development began on Nintendo's next home console, the N64. Early work was slow, as not only were the designers not used to working in 3D yet, but they were also limited in hardware, considering all of Nintendo's resources at the time were being given to Super Mario 64. They moved on despite this, and decided to simply port the original game as a way to get them used to these new tools. Hope for the project between the two developers was high after 6 months of work, however, the story was different on the corporate side of things. With little to no faith in the project, higher-ups at Nintendo were hoping that the two would simply give up in enough time. This was until Amara and Morita presented a quick showcase at Space World, and true development was finally greenlit. Game director Takuya Imura went all in on this project, being responsible for the story, the direction of the music, the graphics, and more. Meanwhile, Miyamoto had two priorities in mind: to reclaim as much as possible from the cancelled Star Fox 2, and to build an even bigger and better version of the original game, now that they had enough computing power. With the gameplay largely being settled early, the majority of development time was instead dedicated to the graphics and world building. Once again, taking inspiration from Miyamoto's love of puppets, the decision was made to animate their mouths as if they were puppets for both stylistic and time-saving reasons. Dialogue was inspired by historical dramas, and in the original build the voices were all done by the development team. Unfortunately, this was received poorly, and professional voice actors were added to the final release. The final project included 3 new play types: a land tank, an on-foot mode for the R-Wing, and a submarine. The tank and the on-foot mode were both taken from Star Fox 2. The biggest new element to gameplay, however, would be the multiplayer, allowing up to 4 players to take control of either the R-Wing or land tank in a number of different game types, including Point Match, shoot down your opponents a certain number of times; Battle Royale, shoot down your opponents and be the last one standing; Time Trial, shoot down enemies within a certain time limit. The game was first shown off at E3 1996, in a very loosely complete state. The more complete beta footage wouldn't be shown off until later that same year, and a VHS tape was distributed to Nintendo Power subscribers, where 2 interrogators from Sony and Sega respectively intimidate a member of Nintendo for info about the game. Similar to its SNES predecessor, Star Fox 64 released in PAL regions as Lilat Wars. It was also the first game to utilize the N64's Rumble Pack, with certain versions of the game being bundled alongside it. This game follows an almost word-for-word recreation of the plot of both Star Fox and Star Fox 2, where the evil Andross has fled to Venom after being exiled from Corneria and now wreaks havoc around the Lilat system. General Pepper enlists Team Star Fox to help, Andross enlists Team Starwolf, and fighting ensues. The biggest deviation in this game is the fact that the final encounter changes based on gameplay decisions, where the player will either defeat a robotic version of Andross or the true form of Andross, depending on the planet you come from before the final mission. After the day is saved, in a fun world-building move, the amount of points the player scored is tallied up and presented to the player as if it was the bill Team Star Fox gave General Pepper for their service. Star Fox 64 was released on April 27, 1997 in Japan, June 30th, 1997 in North America, and October 4th, 1997 in Europe. Upon release, the game received high praise, with the highlights being the precise controls, the creative bosses, and path selections, and the audio quality of the dialogue of the game. It has consistently been listed among some of the best games of all time, and had the sales numbers to match. In North America, it would surpass 1 million units by the end of 1997, being one of only 5 N64 games to sell that many. The game would sell considerably less in Japan, only reaching about 75,000 units in its first week. In another jump forward, I want to talk about what came next for this game before moving on to the next entry in the franchise. At E3 2010, Nintendo announced that Star Fox 64 would be getting remade on the upcoming 3DS handheld. Development this time went to Q Games, which is helmed by Dylan Cuthbert, the Argonaut developer responsible for large parts of both the original Star Fox and the lead developer of Star Fox 2. At E3 the following year, Miyamoto joked that if 64 3D didn't make a lot of money, or if it wasn't one of the best games ever, the series would end. This remake kept just about everything from the original, with some tweaks and new content being added. In terms of gameplay, new hardware features such as the 3DS stereoscopic 3D and the gyroscope controls were added. Alongside this was the new 3DS mode that adjusts the levels to account for these new gameplay changes. The team also included a new expert difficulty, which matches the expert difficulty in the original NES game. Outside of the main mode, one additional game was added to the multiplayer, which was Battle Mode, where players team up to defeat CPUs. Star Fox 64 3D was released on July 14, 2011 in Japan, September 9, 2011 in North America and Europe, September 15, 2011 in Australia, August 30, 2012 in Korea, and March 15, 2013 in China. It received similar praise to its older counterpart, except criticism was received due to the remake's lack of online multiplayer and lack of any meaningful new content. A lot of different reasons were given for the lack of online support, with the most accepted one being the lack of proper development time. Exact sales numbers are unknown, but the fact that the game received a Nintendo Select's re-release means that it hit at least 1 million units worldwide. With the 3D remake covered, let's get back to the next entry in the series. Being more subjective here, this is where Star Fox, by all accounts, starts to go off the rails. Past this point, Nintendo would have less and less to do with the franchise, instead opting to simply oversee another studio's development, rather than be directly involved. With this in mind, back to Star Fox Adventures. Following the completion of Diddy Kong Racing, Rareware was in the beginning of their next major project, under the working title of Dinosaur Planet. A lot of ideas were thrown around, but eventually the project took shape as an open-world adventure game starring Timber the Tiger, from Diddy Kong Racing. As development continued, Timber was removed in favor of a dual protagonist, Saber the Wolf and Crystal the Fox. The game took heavy inspiration from Ocarina of Time, and was set to be the final Rare-developed game for the N64. Development continued well, with a showcase of the game being planned for E3 2000. However, across the world, Nintendo had also started a new project, this one being in the next entry in the Star Fox franchise. The original creator of Star Fox, Takuya Amora, asked for permission to work on this project from Miyamoto, who granted his blessing as long as the game became an action-adventure title instead of the traditional on-rails shooter. Thus, Star Fox Adventures was born. However, progress stalled as development shifted to the upcoming GameCube and its Mario and Zelda titles. This was until a demo available for Dinosaur Planet at E3 caught the eye of Miyamoto, specifically the fact that Saber bore a resemblance to Fox. Shortly after, Nintendo requested that Rare keep quiet about Dinosaur Planet moving forward and meet with them with the intention of merging Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox Adventures. Rare agreed, and Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet moved forward on the NES. Rare spoke about how they recognized the potential in this change, because adding Fox and the others was a great way to increase awareness and sales. As the project progressed, work moved over to the upcoming GameCube and was positioned as a potential launch title. With this transition, the Dinosaur Planet subtitle was dropped. Much of Rare's work remained in place, with only minor changes being made to better integrate the world of Star Fox. One element that was originally supposed to be removed was Crystal, but Amora and Miyamoto encouraged Rare to keep the character in, as Miyamoto was looking to add sex appeal to the franchise and include more mature elements. Beyond this, Rare saw very little interference from Nintendo, who only occasionally checked in or visited their offices to oversee the development. With such a new gameplay style, it's also expected that the game finally had a new storyline. On Dinosaur Planet, General Scales has invaded. After a visit to Krazoa Palace, Crystal is told that if they can bring all of the Krazoa spirits back to the palace, the dinosaurs may have a chance against Scales. Hearing about the invasion, General Pepper enlists Team Star Fox to go investigate. Fox is then given the mission to retrieve the 4 spell stones from General Scales to prevent the planet from falling apart any further. These two things merge as Fox has to assist in finding the spirits and freeing Crystal. However, after successfully returning all of the spirits, Andross is resurrected, but is quickly defeated and Dinosaur Planet is put together once more. Star Fox Adventures was released in September of 2002, on the 23rd for North America, and the 27th in Japan. Later in November, the game would release on the 15th in Australia, and the 22nd in Europe. Despite the differences from other Star Fox games being disliked, the game did receive very good reviews at the time of release. The visuals were the main thing driving these reviews, with elements like the real-time fur rendering receiving high praise from critics. In terms of sales, the game did well, selling over 200,000 units in Japan at release, with the North American release slightly edging it out at over 250,000 copies. This would mark the one and only release Rare ever had on the GameCube before being purchased by Microsoft a day after the game came out. Before Star Fox Adventures had even released, Nintendo revealed that another Star Fox game was coming to the GameCube, this time being developed by Namco. It was originally aimed for a spring 2003 release, which the game did not reach after a variety of delays. It was originally announced that the team behind Ace Combat would be making the game, but this did not end up being the case, as the team behind Klonoa took the reins instead. Unlike its predecessor, Amora and Miyamoto wanted this game to be a lot closer to Star Fox's roots. Unlike previous games, development began on the multiplayer first, as the team considered that to be the least fleshed out part of 64. Namco had approached Nintendo with a series of design documents called Vehicle Swapping War Action Game that laid out the basis of Assault, which would allow players to switch freely between the R-Wing and Landmaster. So much effort was put into the multiplayer modes that the team was debating even bothering with a single-player mode at all. This was until the game was first shown off at E3 2003 and was generally seen as unimpressive. The reception sent the developers back to the drawing board, and the game was delayed a number of times afterwards to allow time to add single-player. In doing so, the team at Namco decided to remove the branching pathways that had been tradition up until that point, and instead implement bigger and more complex levels with checkpoints. When Assault was shown to the press next, it was received far more favorably. Another big departure from the rest of the series came in the control layout, where there were actually 3 different ones people could choose from. There was the dual stick style, most similar to other FPS games, a simpler single stick version, and an acceleration mode that sought to emulate closer to the controls of Star Fox 64. The game sees Team Star Fox once again saving the Lilat system 1 year after Adventures, this time facing 3 different threats: Andross's nephew Andrew, the evil Team Starwolf, and the new threat, the Aparoids. They are cyborg insects who infect and control their hosts, and are hoping to take over the universe under the hive mind of the Aparoid Queen, While away on another mission to stop an infection, the Aperoids make it to Corneria and infect General Pepper, and on Starwolf's side, they manage to infect Pigma, leading to his death. Eventually, they become such a threat that Fox and Wolf team up to defeat the Queen, using a self-destruct device made by Slippy's dad at the Aperoid homeworld. With the Queen dead, all of the infected individuals are cured and the day is saved. As far as the multiplayer goes, Assault supports up to 4 players at a time, and modes where players can man the R-Wing, the Landmaster, or be on foot. Content is unlocked by both playing the multiplayer, but also reaching certain checkpoints in the main story as well. Players can also choose to fight each other, fight on teams, or play a number of the modes solo. Each mode entails a different rule set, and mostly comes down to restricting players to certain weapons or vehicles on a variety of different maps from both the main story and a handful that were multiplayer exclusive. Star Fox Assault launched on February 15, 2005 in North America, the 24th of February in Japan, April 29, 2005 in Europe, and finally June 16, 2005 in Australia. Reception was a lot more mixed than other entries, with a lot of the criticism being aimed at the controls, specifically while on foot. The gameplay changes were praised though, particularly the ability to switch between the R-Wing and Landmaster. In terms of sales numbers, the game did see a release under the Nintendo Player's Choice line, indicating healthy sales. While working on a GBA game called Digidrive, Q Games was asked by Shigeru Miyamoto if the studio, headed by one of Star Fox's main developers Dylan Cuthbert, wanted to prototype a new Star Fox title for the then upcoming Nintendo DS. The team began work on a demo that included massive changes to the look of Team Star Fox, but the initial concept was shot down once Takaya Imamura joined the team later on. Miyamoto was adamant to the team that they were to experiment, as he himself has said he wanted the IP to be an avenue to explore new 3D gaming concepts. This ideology was shown most when the idea to make the game a rail shooter again was shot down in favor of making the stages free roaming on Miyamoto's orders. Unlike Assault, much of Command's development was influenced and overseen by Nintendo, with only the general game design being up to Q Games. Although it was originally planned to have a much more linear story similar to Assault, Cuthbert would manage to convince Nintendo to go back to the series' roots with branching paths and various endings. Imamura would take influence from both the Fighting Fantasy book series as well as the television series 24, making it super intertwined and character-focused. Online multiplayer was also implemented for the first time, although only basic dogfighting. A few years after the events of Assault, Team Star Fox is no more. Peppy has taken General Pepper's role, Slippy is getting married, Falco rolls solo, and Crystal is flying with Starwolf now. The only 2 remaining members, Fox and Rob64, discover that Andross bred a new species of aquatic aliens named the Anglers, who are now attacking the Lilat system under the command of the Angler Emperor. One of their first targets is, of course, Corneria, so Fox goes to stave off the invasion. It's from this point that the story can diverge, but only upon subsequent replays. Through different dialogue choices, the story and its levels will change around the player, and include different characters and scenarios based on that. Overall, there are 9 different endings that can be achieved, each showcasing possible outcomes for the futures of the character. They are as follows. 1. Team Star Fox gets back together after the victory on Venom, and Slippy's fiancé joins Star Fox. 2. Upon victory, Fox gets back together with Crystal, and the 2 of them have a kid together. Said kid reassembles Team Star Fox with other descendants of the original team and Falco. 3. Team Star Fox stays disbanded. Crystal becomes one of the system's toughest pilots in Starwolf, and the 2 never get back together. This is the default storyline that all players will get on their first playthrough. 4. After joining Starwolf, Crystal turns them into a beloved team, except public backlash to her betraying Star Fox leads to her becoming a bounty hunter named Cursed. 5. All of the partners of the team plan and execute a party for Team Star Fox upon victory. Crystal rejoins the team after her and Fox confess their feelings. 6. Andross's grandson revives Venom and pronounces it the center of the Lilat system, and once again starts a war against Corneria. 7. Slippy and his fiancée get married and have 7 kids. Slippy tells story of his war days to said children. 8. Star Fox abandons Falco after defeating Pigma, and out of spite he makes a new team called Star Falco. 9. After losing Crystal, Fox gives up his entire life, and him and Falco go to race in the world of F-Zero. The multiplayer, as mentioned, was online and consisted of a dogfighting mode. Players collect stars after defeating other players. There is also a ranking system, using a Z to A scale that players would work their way up by winning matches. Star Fox Command was released on August 3rd, 2006 in Japan, August 28th in North America, September 21st in Australia, and January 26, 2007 in Europe. This game received very positive reviews, with a number of different outlets praising the entry's return to form and fun elements present in early games. The strategy gameplay was also heavily praised. In terms of sales, Command debuted at number 14 on Japan bestsellers list, with 20,000 copies sold in its first day. Similar success was seen in North America, with the game reaching number 5 on the sales chart in the first week. Although there was an entry in the Star Fox series worked on for the Wii, it never took shape considering Miyamoto could not find a compelling enough hook for the game. This was until the Wii's successor, the Wii U, came out. Work resumed, now under the leadership of Platinum Games of Bayonetta fame. According to Platinum Games lead, Yusuke Hashimoto, the idea for them to develop the next entry came about after Platinum approached Nintendo for permission to use an R-Wing in Bayonetta 2. The first look at the game would be shown off at E3 2014, with Miyamoto also telling the press that 2 other demos shown off, Project Guard and Project Giant Robot, were also related to this Star Fox project. The game was confirmed to not be a sequel or prequel, but rather an episodic retelling of Star Fox 64. To hype up the game, Nintendo held a fan art competition on Miiverse where you could earn eShop credit. They also released a CG animated short called The Battle Begins that came with the eShop demo of the game. The story, as expected, follows the exact same beats as Star Fox 64. Andross is once again waging war on the Lylat system, and it's up to General Pepper to call upon Team Star Fox to save the day yet again. Miyamoto stated that this game breaks it up episodically to further lean into his love for Thunderbirds, the show that influenced a lot of the design of early Star Fox. Particularly the puppets shown off on the box art and promotional materials. The biggest departure from its influence is of course the controls. The game, taking advantage of the Wii U gamepad, splits the player's view in 2. On the TV, a third-person view of the R-Wing is shown in the same style as previous games. On the gamepad, a first-person view from inside the cockpit helps players aim more accurately, by using the built-in gyroscope in the controller. Players could switch between which screen showed at which time. Transforming the R-Wing into a walker was also reintroduced, a feature that was first included in Star Fox 2. Star Fox Zero released on April 21st, 2016 in Japan, the 22nd in North America and Europe, and the 23rd in Australia. The game received fairly negative reviews, with the controls being the number one criticism across most outlets. The length and unoriginality of the game was also panned, with most outlets not enjoying its similarity to Star Fox 64. There were minor praises for the overall graphics and level design, and when it comes to sales, although it saw strong numbers at release, it did not hold and would become the least selling game in the franchise. As previously mentioned, Miyamoto did tell the press that both Project Guard and Project Giant Robot were related to the Star Fox Wii U project. Although Giant Robot never came to fruition, Project Guard would go on to be revealed as Star Fox Guard in a Nintendo Direct in March of 2016. The game was aimed to be a pack-in title for Star Fox Zero, getting its own disc and case in the physical release, and having a separate digital version that could also be purchased separately. Players must watch the security cameras of various bases owned by Grippy, Slippy's uncle, and protect them from oncoming attackers. The TV acts as a camera array, while the gamepad gives you an overhead view. Once the player spots a threat, you select the camera it's closest to so you can destroy it. There are a total of 100 missions to go through, as well as a level editor that allows players to change enemy behavior and share it with others. Star Fox Guard released on the same day as Star Fox Zero, and shared a lot of the same sales data. In terms of reception, it was extremely mixed. Criticism came from the bland graphics and simple nature, but praise was given to the enemy AI and general gameplay. In a surprise Nintendo Direct following Star Fox's inclusion in the Super Mario Galaxy movie, Nintendo revealed Star Fox, a full series reboot that will once again tell the story of and remake the gameplay of Star Fox 64. The game's biggest change is the lean towards realistic graphics, which has caused a divide in the reception of the project. The game is not out yet as of the time of writing, but early reception of press demos has been positive, so I suppose the future has hope. Star Fox is one of the few Nintendo franchises that has never been able to escape its past, and therefore has never really been able to innovate. Whether or not they are good games, I do find it interesting personally that we are now on the third retelling of Star Fox 64, but I am hopeful for this new design direction of the franchise, and hope that this acts as a launching pad for something new later. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.